Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
How is everybody doing?
Doing great.
Outstanding.
Awesome. For those, real quick, let's kick it off. For those who don't know who you are, if you could give short little introductions, um, name obviously, as we can see. So that one's an easy one, but like where you're from, what you drive, and maybe even like what got you to Rivian.
Oh, interesting. Okay. As the name on the screen says, I'm Roger Davis. Live in Bend, Oregon. I'm the president of Central Oregon Rivian Club. Have a Rivian Blue R1S, Black Mountain interior, currently 20-inch ATs, and that'll be important later as we discuss. Been in Bend for about 3.5 years. Retired from a sportswear company in Beaverton, Oregon, where I spent about 25 years. And while I was still working before I retired, a coworker, um, well, I had a Tesla at the time, and a coworker knew I was into EV, so he said, "Hey, check out this cool vehicle." And it was like November of 2018 or whatever it was, and I said, "Wow, that's really cool." So I put a pre-order in, and I think it was I put the pre-order in 2019, and 1,335 days later, the
Nice.
R1S arrived at my home, and Jer was there to celebrate. Actually,
Very cool.
Right. Yeah, hey, I'm Jer. I was in Bend. I'm in Bend as well for the most part, although we have a house in California, so we kind of pop between the two locations quite a bit. So I get to play around in the Bay Area Rivian Club as well as Central Oregon Rivian Club. Um, yeah, the Rivian's my sixth EV actually, so in the last 11 years. So
Very cool.
I was into EVs and into the whole EV world for quite a while. And when a truck was coming, that was actually coming and not not coming, I started looking into it and got to go to some of the early Rivian events. And uh, yeah, it just really piqued my interest to own a truck. I've never owned a truck before, so now I do. Now I have a Rivian R1 T. It's a limestone with Black Mountain 20s, little customizations here and there, and love it, love it, love it, love it. So
Perfect color scheme, by the way, Jer.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
knew you would
Yep.
like that.
Yep. Very
Yeah.
cool. So, let's fast forward from your origin story with Rivian, and then give us like a quick like. I mean, well, take your time, but give us the story on what happened a few weeks back, um, to the both of you.
sure. Yeah, it was I believe the Saturday before last, and my wife and I were driving out to dinner. Just left the house, and down the road about a mile or so, I saw a Rivian Blue R1S kind of parked at the end of a dirt driveway, and I thought, "Oh, that's cool. We have a new neighbor with a Rivian. We'll have to make sure and go say hi sometime, introduce ourselves, get them in the club, and this, that, and the other thing." We went off for dinner, and which is on the other side of Bend, and we placed our order, sat down. I popped open my phone because I'm a terrible husband, and I look at the socials instead of talking to my wife, and I popped on Oregon Rivian
Uh,
Owners Facebook page, and there was a plea for help. And I guess I can say his name. He's now a Rivian Stories member. His name's Tyson Campbell. He says, "Hey, I'm stuck between Redmond and Bend with a flat tire." And he was asking if anybody had a 22-inch Sport spare that he could borrow. He'd replace it or buy a new one or whatever. And like, oh God, that wasn't a new neighbor after all. That was a stricken Rivian, and I drove right by him. It's like I felt really, really bad. And so I had messaged him prior just because I knew he was getting a blue R1S, and thought that was cool and whatever. But we never really. I didn't know him. He's from the Portland area, and so I messaged him, say, "Hey, it's going to be like an hour because I haven't got my dinner yet, but I just taken off the 22s off my R1S, put ATs on for some off-roading, and we'll see how it does in the winter. I said, "Hey, you can use one, but it'll be a little bit before I can get there." And he was obviously very appreciative. He'd called AAA. AAA was there, but Jer can discuss this a little more. Is that the guy didn't know what to do with the vehicle really. So yeah, wolf down our dinner. My wife was not pleased with the pace of my eating, but she played along, and we hustled back home. Interestingly, we had to pass him again to get home to put the tire in the R1S, and then come back. And um, within that, I should say that after I saw that plea for help, and before I reached out to Tyson, I messaged Jer and said, "Hey, you've got a torque wrench, right?" He goes, "Yep." Well, you got some loose lugs or something? And I said, "No, are you available right now?" And he said, "Yeah." So then I called him and gave him the lowdown. And so, yeah, we hustled out and met up at the site. And fortunately, by then it was super dark, and AAA was still there with the lights flashing, so it was easy to find the spot in the dark. But yeah, Jer, you take it from here.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we got there and the flatbed was there and the guy was just looking confused. Clearly, he had never encountered a Rivian before, and what we realized was he really wasn't capable of handling that vehicle because even though it was a flatbed, which of course you would want, uh, the winch on it was rated for 7,000 pounds, and it was just kind of like, and it was a flat, so. I guess the guy offered to drive it up the ramp, and Tyson's like, "Have you ever driven an EV before?" And he's like, "No." And we all had visions of Dukes of Hazzard launch over
Right.
the top of the flatbed. So so that option was off. He also had a hydraulic jack, but it didn't come anywhere near as high enough that was needed for lifting a Rivian. So he was pretty much useless. So he got a call and he took off, and we were there anyway, and we thought we could handle it. So I think it went. The one lesson I would say we learned was it would be good to do this ahead of time on your own time instead of a busy dark highway. But
Yeah.
so because it was a little perilous, but we were far enough off the road that it wasn't too bad. But Roger and I had accumulated some tire changing paraphernalia because we were going to put on a clinic for Cork, and so we both had bottle jacks. We have the pucks for lifting it, and I had the lug, the torque wrench, and a few other things. So we were semi-prepared. I knew that we probably needed a riser for the bottle jack. So that was the one thing that we didn't have, because when you put the Rivian in highest mode and then put it in tire change mode in the settings, it's pretty freaking high. It's like 16 inches to the bottom of the puck. So I looked it up later, and the jack only goes up 17 and a half. So we were lucky that we found a couple of 2x4s, but that really made me uneasy, like balancing on the corner of the Rivian on 2x4s. But we'll remedy that before our tire change clinic. So Tyson had put some some goo in there, sealant, but it was just such a bad rip in the tire, it didn't do anything. So so we got to work and we lifted it. We lifted it enough that we could get the wheel off, and then we realized it wasn't high enough to get the wheel back on. So
The fully inflated one, yeah.
Right.
and so but fortunately we had access to an inflator. So we deflated the tire to fit it in and then inflated it back up. So that was really, really nice to have. And the other thing is when we lowered it, the wheel looked towed in, which was weird. And we didn't know if it was some artifact of coming out of that tire change mode or something. But at that point, a cop had come by and stopped to just put on the hazards, which was really great for us. And she was like, yeah, that doesn't look right. So we jacked it back up again and made sure it was seated on there, because that was our worst nightmare, is like it was like tilted or something and was going to come off. But and then I think the other major lesson was lost in translation when Tyson told us the torque setting was 190. Well, it was 190 Newton meters,
Newton meters, not
Yep.
not
yeah.
190 feet, which is what we torqued it at, and which is like 140 pounds. So
Oh yeah.
it was yeah, that was a little miscommunication that Roger figured out afterwards. I don't know how you thought of that, but looked it up and like, is this bad that we over torqued it? But I guess repeatedly over torquing is not good, but it wasn't like it was better than under torquing. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Right.
So all in all, we got it all going, and he took off with Roger's extra wheel and a flat to repair back at home and to return with it. I don't know if he brought it back yet, or did you sync up with him
So
yet? Or?
I think Discount Tire locally must have repaired the flat, because I'm picking it up at his parents' house in Redmond a little later today. So he didn't
Oh,
have to
nice.
drive back with it, and his vehicle's really new, so it's his wheel is actually a little newer than mine. So I suspect it's his wheel with a new tire on it.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Do you guys know what happened? How he got a flat?
It's just that area is notorious for shrapnel.
Yeah.
Something just shredded it was like literally in the tread. It wasn't like in the sidewall or anything, but it was big and deep enough that it
Wow.
just tore a hole. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the fix-a-flat had just spewed out all over almost immediately. So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
his whole seal change.
Yeah, and I think if memory serves, pretty much as soon as you use that fix a flat, um, like a Discount Tire, America's Tire, depending on where you are, or any tire company for that matter, they won't repair it because
Right.
it's beyond the point of not necessarily beyond the point of repair, but balancing the tire becomes an issue.
Yes. So
Due to that.
speaking from experience, because I actually worked at Discount Tire
Nice.
as a teenager, and yeah, fix a flat is, you hate running into it because it is just such a mess. When you take the tire off of the wheel, all that gunk is in there, and yeah, you've got to get it out of there and clean up the inside of the tire to be able to especially patch. But we typically used to take the belt and suspenders approach, right? So we would plug it and patch it depending on the amount of damage. And yeah, that stuff is disgusting. So it just adds a lot to the repair process. But unless things have changed, there's no reason why you can't repair
Gotcha.
a tire that's had fix a flat sealant in it.
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, I suspect it would be even messier if the fix-a-flat worked and it was under pressure when you pop the seal, because that stuff is still kind of liquefied. Is that right?
Well, so typically it collects in the bottom of the tire. So, you can let the air out and then, break the bead on the tire, but still
Okay.
squishes around in there.
Yeah.
Thankfully, knock on this wood desk, I've never had to use that. I've had a catastrophic blowout when the whole entire carcass, like the whole tread, came off of a tire on my super sweet 1994 Honda Civic when I was like 18, and that's the only time I've ever in my entire career of driving I've ever had a tire go out.
Okay.
That
Now
one
you
time.
just did it.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
So
Well-
Tyson's flat was like at 5:05 on a Saturday, and Discount Tire was closed. The manager
yeah.
was still there, closing down, and then obviously they'd be closed for the weekend. So he was he didn't know what to do. So
Yeah.
it was really fortuitous, not only that we saw his message, but that we happened to have a 22 laying around. We got 3 more in case there were 3 more flats around town. But it worked out well. It felt really good to help a brother in need, and
Mhm.
yeah, and obviously he was super appreciative. His dad was there with him, and they were thrilled, and yeah, it was neat.
Yeah,
And you,
they gave us a nice bottle of bourbon for,
That's
for
right.
doing it.
oh,
So
Yeah.
excellent.
We didn't
Yeah.
ask why he had a frunk full of bourbon, but that's for
no, we
another
don't ask
story.
those things.
You just
Hey,
say
it's
thank you.
there you go. As long as they share, just say thank you. But no, I guess that's also good that you guys were able to get some real world experience,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's going to help you put on a clinic to help other members of the Rivian community. So that's outstanding.
Well,
That's
it's
right.
also
Yep.
worth noting that like EVs generally don't carry spares. And this
Yep.
is, they don't carry them because of the extra weight. They don't carry them because generally they're skateboard designed. So they have the whole bottom of the vehicle is batteries, right? And there's not a good reservoir to stick them in. And they want
Yep.
to keep the frunk for its differentiation and all of that. So I think kudos to Rivian for even having the space to put spares in and then making them available. I know it was a wait a while before we could get them, but now that they're available, and it's also worth noting that when you do buy a spare from Rivian, it comes with the kit that would allow you to do a tire change, like a single tire change. It's not, it's not the best jack necessarily, but it'll get the job done certainly.
Yep.
And so he didn't have any spare, so he was just stuck, and we were lucky that we had accumulated these things to do that, right? So
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely
Yeah.
sounds like a very fortunate kind of series of events that
Mhm.
transpired. I mean, Roger driving right by him, happening to ignore his wife and look at his phone at
Right.
dinner,
Yep.
all the things.
Yeah. The one
Yeah.
time I ignore my wife and look at my phone, right?
Yeah. The one time.
Yes,
the
Yeah.
one
yes.
The one
time,
time. Yeah.
That's so great.
well, I'd like to think that this is something that it's not unique to us doing. We were willing to do it, but this is such a great community, and
Mhm.
I think there were plenty of other people that piped in on the thread about wanting to help or trying to help. So I mean, we weren't alone in it. We were just the ones that got there, that
Yeah.
had the stuff to do it, and so and also kudos to you guys. I mean, you guys creating this Rivian Stories community. It's just been it's how Roger and I met. It's how we've all met.
Right.
It's really been because in the earlier days we didn't have anything. We didn't have vehicles. We were just
Yep.
Right.
waiting,
Right.
and just like every little bit of information was
Yep.
we just hung on it. So anyway, it's been a fun journey with you all, and I appreciate
Absolutely.
that you've made this community. I think you've fostered the Rivian community that would lead to something like this happening. So
The
Yeah, greatly
the
appreciate that, Jared. It's been fun. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead,
and
Skylar.
the Rivians are absolutely amazing, but I would say that the people and the community is
Yep.
even better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you would always want to have a flat tire in your driveway, and sometimes, you don't get that kind of luck. So, I mean, the fact that you guys were able to go to uh, the need of a fellow Rivian owner and be able to knock that out at night off a highway, when sadly enough, AAA couldn't help, which I find wild to me. But I mean, that could just be a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a continuing education thing that
Right.
maybe he just hasn't gotten to yet. But um, there definitely is a need for that for sure. I mean, you guys have highlighted that, already in this almost 20-minute story that we've shared, or that you guys have shared with us. But man, thank you guys for doing that, and thanks for coming on and chatting with us.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. What else?
We have to get together someday in person, like somewhere in the country.
Yeah, no kidding.
Seriously,
and not in Georgia.
Yeah, So I got my South Carolina trip coming out, but I don't blame you guys for not coming all the way to South Carolina.
Or South Carolina, that's where it is.
Yeah.
That's a long haul from Oregon, man. It's a long haul from Texas, but I don't know. Jimmy, so the wife is open to the idea, at least, so we shall see.
I'll take it. Yeah, we need to figure out something more central for sure.
Yep.
I just don't know. Yeah. We're looking at doing a Colorado trip this time next year. Basically, around this time next year. So we'll see. That all depends if I can't talk. So
if you can't talk,
if I can't talk, if I can't talk Nikki into doing the Rebel rally, she really wants to do Rebel.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
nice.
She really wants to do Rebel, and I'm probably I might cut this out of the video if I can figure out a way to cut this out. So that's inside baseball for you guys. But
so Limestone Legends.
Does she want to drive or navigate?
She wants to drive. So it's either going to be, I'll spare you guys. I'll text offline the rest of that story.
Okay.
But I guess I will say this: while we were at the factory, we got to meet Nicole Johnson, who was one of the Rebels last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki was girl crushing all over Nicole. She was just a super cool person. And it was fun to be able to chat with her about the Rebel and going out there. She was, I think, like 2 or 3 days before we met her, she was out there doing like final, like mother hen type, pep talks and making sure they had all the gear they needed and making sure that they had one of the stories she told was making sure that they had the proper clothing, like warm weather or cold weather gear, because I don't know if you saw any of the highlights, like Emmy Hall was talking about, it got down into the teens.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
One of those first nights. And they were talking about one point, like not bringing the heavy jackets and the 0 degrees sleeping bag because it was more gear than they thought they needed, and they were very appreciative of Nicole's mother henning and making sure that they had everything that they needed. So it was fun. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. Unless you got any last tidbits.
Yeah, how's the weather in Oregon this time of year? I mean, shoot, we could just catch up for a couple of minutes. Yeah.
It's great. It's actually, we have a Cars and Coffee this Saturday, and it's going to be in the high 20s, low 30s.
Wow!
But at least it's not Sunday because it's going to be 16.
Dang.
But then it was like 80 yesterday or something like that. So you never know.
Nice. I'm gonna end this stream, that way we're not. It's less to record later, or less to edit later. Well, that's awesome. So what